Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim, and we talk about horror movies on this show. And on this particular episode, we are going to be talking about something we're working our way through, because we have a new Leatherface movie coming out in October, which I believe, at least currently, is called Leatherface. It's not unlike horror movies, especially sequels, to change their titles closer to release. Look at Annabelle 2, which is now Annabelle the Creation, I think.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's a prequel about the origin of Annabelle.
Which we already got, but alright.
Well, no, before that though, we're going to get like how the doll even became cursed in the first place.
Didn't we get that in the first movie?
I think I think they like explained the backstory in a couple of like lines of dialogue, but I think we're getting the full fleshed out. Here's the thing.
No, because in the first movie, like in the first scene is about the crazy cultist lady that dies and performs that ritual and the doll's in the room, and I thought the whole thing was that she possesses the doll.
There's more to the origin. No, I don't have the answers to. I didn't read the goddamn movie.
Damn it, Pete.
It's called Annabelle the Creation. What the hell else am I supposed to assume it's about?
Maybe it's like the very literal, like the factory that made the doll and the dude that sculpted her face. And
okay, going by the teaser trailer, I'm going to guess then it is about the first person who owns the doll post possession.
Okay, that makes sense.
We see a little girl with the doll, and it's all creepy. So I'll guess that's the story. Then it's the first.
Okay.
As soon as it got cursed, this is the first sort of incident with it.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about Annabelle? I don't want to talk about Annabelle. So yeah, we're going to talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which of course is the sequel to the first one, and is the second of 7?
Sounds about right.
4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7. Yeah, the new one, the new prequel in October will be the 8th movie in the Texas Chainsaw franchise. So,
how many prequels is that?
Well, I go through this every time, but I'll do it now. So Texas Chainsaw had, obviously the original, had 3 sequels. Well, we'll say 2 sequels and then kind of a reboot with The Next Generation, right?
Okay.
And then it had a remake. It had a prequel to the remake, and then they made Texas Chainsaw in 2013, which is a direct sequel to the original film, ignoring all the other sequels, and obviously ignoring the remake and the prequel to the remake.
It's so easy. Why? And who would get confused by that?
And now we're getting a prequel, presumably to the original film, although I've got a funny feeling it's not going to feel like 1970s or whatever when they make it. But we'll see, maybe I'll be surprised.
Yeah, well, who knows? Yeah.
But that said, I believe I believe they finished filming it like years ago, and it's been on the shelf, which is never a good sign.
Oh, I wish I would have known. I would have congratulated them.
That said, another example of a horror sort of sequel that was on the shelf for a couple of years after being completed was Jason X, and I happen to quite enjoy Jason X, so who knows?
If this one involves Leatherface...
that should be the next one.
I was gonna say Leatherface in space, but Leatherface is just too good. That's just what it should be, just hands down. Yeah.
Oh god. So obviously we need to also get the Michael Jason crossover at some point. Friday the 31st. Come on.
I would love that.
If you're going to have that movie, that's the title. I don't even think the movie would necessarily be good, but I think that title's perfect.
Yeah. I feel like it would take so long for them to like meet up. Like you would just see one like in the background, and then cut to the other side, you see the other one in the background.
And if I was going to plot that movie, I would say a member of the Strode family. So Michael's hunting, new cousin niece character Strode. But she goes and spends summer at Crystal Lake, and that's how you get Michael there on his turf.
There you go. It's so easy. I'm surprised they haven't done it already.
Rights issues and stuff, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so Texas Chainsaw 2 is what we're actually going to talk about today. Pardon the tangents. This is part of what we do. We like to go away. But anyway, so we'll do a little bit spoiler free. We'll do a little bit spoiler free before we go. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I'll warn you before we go into spoilers, if there even is a lot we want to talk about in that sense. It was made a long time after the original. It's over a decade after the fact. Well, let me get these. I think it was 87? 86.
86.
1986.
The year of my birth.
Oh, man.
I was born, and then they said, man, this kid, we got to make a movie to celebrate.
What better movie than a weird family of cannibals? Was there ever a movie that sums up Tim Vergulish in a single log line? Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. What happened to Part 1? I don't know. It's perfect. It works for you so well. Those parts of you I think are missing. So this one takes place in a different part of Texas, and it's basically the family are still doing their thing. There's like a new brother who for me in my head as I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, he's replaced the hitchhiker. Turns out it's the hitchhiker's twin brother. Not that I necessarily got that from the movie. I looked up because I had to just double check that I was understanding it right. Just like, is it this weird thing where they don't care about continuity? So it's just like, they've got another brother now. But at the same time, Dennis Hopper's character, the ex-cop, Lefty, his whole thing is that he, like, some of the kids that died were his niece and nephew, like Franklin was his nephew. And so obviously continuity does matter, because that's his whole reason for doing this, is because he's been hunting them across Texas apparently. Because the opening text, because it starts with a scroll with the the voice talking about it as if it's a true story. It's like, oh, the massacre never stopped. It's been going on across Texas all these years, and Lefty's hunting them. Another main character is a radio host called Stretch, and she inadvertently hears one of the kills at the start of the movie, and she tries to team up with Lefty, and gets kind of caught in the crossfire. And very quickly the movie ends up in their new home base, the family's new thing, which is like an abandoned amusement park. And there's a lot of chainsaw fights, and there's blood, and there's stuff, and there's black humor. It's definitely more veering towards black comedy than straight horror like the first one was.
Oh, sure.
Even though the characters, I don't think the characters ever feel like they've altered them to make it feel like that. It's just they've just embraced it even more to the point where it's more absurd than it is scary.
I feel like in most franchises, it usually takes up until maybe like the fourth or fifth installment of the series before they get really crazy and off the rails. And this, they just skip all that. They're like, no, like the second one, we're going totally bonkers.
Toby Hooper gives himself a gratuitous cameo.
Oh, who did he play? I didn't recognize him.
It's just when Stretch goes to see Lefty at the hotel, and he's the guy who sort of stumbles in front of her and throws the beer can at the other guys.
Oh, okay.
But he proper turns around and looks at the camera and throws his can. It's really gratuitous. It's like, Hitchcock would just walk through a scene and that'd be enough for him, but now he has to have a little moment where he turns around and is like, you damn kids.
Oh, it's the hoops,
The hoops, yeah, I'm sure that's what his buddies all call him. You want to go round to Hoops for dinner? He's got a chainsaw. Of course he does. So yeah, that's the gist of the movie. That's the plot. Tim.
Yeah.
What did you think of Texas Chainsaw? And obviously we've both seen this before. We usually specify that before we start talking about it. Actually, we've both seen this before. I think it's been maybe a little while since I've seen this. 5-6 years, something like that. But what do you think of Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2?
Well, Pete, are you asking me if this movie is good? Are you asking me if this movie is really, really good? Is that what?
That sounds like the start of a porn scene. Tim, what are you doing?
I'm doing what Stretch did to Leatherface.
Okay. Answer the damn question.
I tell you what, I like it a lot up into a point. Like, it doesn't take itself seriously. Of the goofier kind of horror movies, which I tend to like a lot, but I feel like almost every scene just goes on a smidge too long than I'd like it to.
I'm there with. I like it too, and I do have. I think I like a lot of individual things about it. I think as a movie, it's got a really weird structure.
Oh sure, yeah.
Because I feel like they set up the start, like these randomers get killed. I don't think that's a spoiler. And then we introduce the main characters, and they sort of kind of team up. And then a thing happens, and we end up at the villains, the Sawyer family's base, this abandoned amusement park. And I looked at the time when they got there. It was almost bang on halfway through the film, but it feels like you're going into Act 3 already. It feels like there's a lot of setup to get to know the characters and get to care about them that's missing. It's really weird.
Oh, and there really isn't like a lot of characters. Like, there's not a high death count or anything in this movie.
Nah, it's just basically just Lefty and Stretch. Lefty has like a sort of co-worker who works with her. Lefty has no one with him, and that's kind of it. Like, so no, I think from a structural point of view, it feels really weird. And then I actually agree with you. There's some scenes that I think just go on a bit too long, especially in the last half of the film when they're in the base and. It's like, and there's nothing I dislike about any of the scenes in and of themselves. It's like you could have taken about 20 to 30% of this away, and it would have been just better paced.
The movie's about an hour and 40 minutes, I believe.
Yeah.
And I feel like you could have easily shaved off, like, not a ton, but maybe 10 minutes, and I think it might have flowed a little better.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it's a kind of thing where it's something ridiculous or cheesy, or someone is being all crazy and it's entertaining, but like everything, it gets to a point where it's like, why is this still going on? Like, I feel like we should have skipped to what's happening next now. Or
I think the first half's fine from a pacing point of view, but it's then the second half it just slows right down. It revels in all the weird things that it's doing, and all of them on their own are actually fine. I like most of those scenes. And then it's like, oh wait, we're still doing this, and you're checking your watch, and you're like, you're getting a little bit tedious, kind of thing. And I still like the movie overall. I think it's a pretty decent sequel,
definitely.
But it's definitely got its flaws. It's definitely not as good as the first one. Even if it didn't have these problems, it's probably still wouldn't be as good as the first one, obviously. But I think it's definitely got these share of issues that kind of hold it back a little bit.
What I like too is that it feels kind of ambitious to me. Like, I think especially with this, the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think it would have been really easy to do, a straight up sequel where you kind of expect what's going to happen. Like, it's just another group of hitchhikers, running into the family again, and they really don't do that. It does feel like they are actively trying to do something different, which I liked. Yeah,
I think Tobe Hooper really didn't want to just do the same thing again, right down to the fact that he basically kind of changed the genre. That what he was working in, and I don't think it's as successful as say Aliens to Alien, but
sure.
it does give it a different kind of feel, and it at least feels like it's not such a departure. It feels like a betrayal to the characters. It still fits who they are. So that works. I will say, watching this one again, especially watching it so soon after watching the original a few weeks ago, it's like kind of amazing how the first one's this really grimy movie. It's shot in 16mm. It feels like that. And it's not that this one feels like super slick or clean, but it does feel more like an actual movie from the 80s kind of thing. Like, it feels like any other movie I'd watched from the 80s with a similar sort of budget, and it feels like it actually has production value as opposed to them having one house out in the middle of nowhere to work with. Because that their whole base in this is like a big set that they've built, presumably, or at least
it's
dressed.
huge.
And it's
or
really
at least feels big.
And we have a car chase at the start. I mean, imagine them doing a car chase in the first Texas Chainsaw. They have money for that. Like, so there's a lot of things like that, and these aren't necessarily bad things. I do think it maybe robs it of a little bit of the, like, some of the snuff film kind of feel the first one had is kind of lost, and it's debatable whether or not you wanted that again, or if you wanted to have it feel a bit different and go elsewhere. Because I think the risk would have been, if they were going to do like a sort of like typical copy of the formula, have a new group of characters stumble into the house, it would have had the same increased production value, just because this time it's backed because it's a name and it's the 80s and they want a slasher sequel. I think what you'd have maybe ended up having is you would have had just a Texas Chainsaw that felt like a sequel to another franchise, even though it's Leatherface, kind of thing. Whereas here it feels like, no, it's kept all these other characters and it's got these wacky absurdity and your cannibal humor and all the rest of it. And
and I kind of like the first one feels sleazy, but in like a very 70s way, and then this one, it still feels sleazy, but like in a very 80s way.
I think we spoke a lot about the first one about how the characters were kind of shit, like they were just kind of blank slates to be killed. I think this one does a slightly better job. And that may just because it's only got two characters, really, outside of the family. I don't think it does enough. Like, I don't think it gives us enough time with them to really grow to care about Stretch or Lefty. Lefty in particular, we'll talk about this in spoilers, but he's actually kind of unlikable if you really pay attention to what he does in this movie.
I mean, he's totally insane, but he is like captivating. Like every time on screen, I wanted to see what he was gonna do.
Oh yeah, it's Dennis Hopper, and I can only imagine. Like, I'm not sure why he did this movie. I can't imagine he wanted to do a Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel. I'm guessing he either was in money sort of concerns at the time, and it was an easy paycheck, or something else.
Who knows?
I'm positive. I am positive he was not happy he was doing this. And he gives an absurd performance, but it's entertaining, so I cannot deny that. But it is better than the first one in that. If there's one thing I'd say is better than the first one, it's maybe the fact that I at least feel like these two were characters. Mm-hmm. I can describe them. I can say, oh, this is what Stretch is like. She's a wise talking radio host who has a bit of a mouth on her. She's quite smart and thinks on her feet. As we said, Lefty's kind of insane and got a lust for revenge, and he's kind of wacky and that kind of thing.
He's like a little bit of a Bible thumper, good with a chainsaw.
He's good with multiple chainsaws. So yeah, no, I think that's worth mentioning. So no, and like we say, it's less low budget grimy setting, and it's more less big over the top kind of gluttonous, I would say, to go with the whole theme of like eating and stuff like that. Like we say, the new base is this big set, this big abandoned amusement park, and it feels like, oh, we got money now, we're going to do everything. We're going to be like them and just have everything, and to the point where it's over the top. And I appreciate that thought. That kind of works.
Yeah, definitely. And like, even though there's not a ton of kills in it, like when there was, I did think like any type of kill or gore or whatever, I always thought it was pretty entertaining, and there was some good gore effects. That's
kind of similar to the first one when you think about it. There wasn't a high body count in that either, but when they did have a kill, it was usually entertaining for the most part.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And exciting. So I guess in that way it's spiritually continued on some Texas Chainsaw stuff. All right, I think we'll go into spoilers now, so we can talk about plot. So full spoilers from this point on for Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. So, like I say, we get to their base really quickly, and basically we get there. We get the quick little scene of like Hopper going to the chainsaw store and like just testing his big chainsaw, and he's like, and the guy who's selling the chainsaws is just like sort of in shock because he's like swinging the chainsaw as if he's practicing how easy it swings, and he gets the two little ones.
That guy had such a range of emotions. I couldn't tell at first if he was angry or if then he was excited or if then he was aroused. Like, he just went through the whole like gamut of emotions.
Well, it's because he'd already put all the money out on the table, so he was like, oh, he's paying. Oh, he can do whatever he wants with his chainsaw. I'm making a sale. That's kind of his thing. But he basically, because Stretch records this phone in, because he's doing a phone in thing at the start of the movie. And these two like college assholes who are like joyriding and shooting like road signs and stuff are phoning up and won't hang up. And for some reason they have this stupid system where they can't hang up on their end, which is really stupid when you think about it.
I don't know anything about radio, but I gotta assume that is not how it works. Like, if someone calls in, you just can't get rid of them until they hang up.
Yeah, because as soon as someone realizes that, they're going to do what these two do and just not hang up and just be dicks about it. Like, you're going to get these assholes, but they can't hang up, and they're being assholes. And you can sort of tell they're going to be the first kills. They're kind of set up to be these obnoxious.
Wait, are you saying that the guy named Rick the Prick is obnoxious?
Was that the one wearing those stupid glasses that had like the colored things on them? Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Reminded me of my like 3D like Pog Slammers I used to have as a kid.
And he's firing off a gun looking at it. He's just like, I'm ready for these two to die. And this is where we get the exciting car scene where the bad guy's truck like pulls upside them, and Leatherface holds his dead hitchhiker brother because they've got his corpse. Because of course they've got his corpse, so they're not going to waste his corpse. And he's like throwing him about, and then he like starts cutting into the roof. And obviously they're hearing all this on the radio because they're still on the call, and she records the call and hears them die. The end of the death's pretty cool though. You see the one guy gets his like head like cut with a chainsaw, and he's just like pouring blood. Looks pretty good. And the movie takes like 20 seconds, and it's already got more blood than the first movie.
Yeah, like that death scene looks really cool, and just the visual of Leatherface like on top of the car with the corpse of his brother, like hanging off on him. It just looked like really cool and weird and creepy and visually interesting.
Yeah, creepy, definitely. And Joe, I think it does. I think it's like a statement right in the opening scene. Look, this is what we can do in the sequel. Like, we're going to be bigger, we're going to be bolder, we're going to be more in your face and more over the top. And that's what this is. It's Leatherface on a top of a truck, slashing into a car as they're both driving at whatever speed.
I feel like it's showing you how crazy this family is, but also like how crazy this movie is.
Exactly. So Stretch goes to Lefty and's like, I've got this tape, and at first he's like, oh no, I don't want to put you in danger. And then after he goes and buys his chainsaws, he shows up and he's like, you know what, play that tape. And she's like, okay. He's like, no, I mean on the air. Play it on there. And basically what he's trying to do is lure them out. He wants the killers to come out and seek her out. But this is why you kind of like you realise like he's not actually that sympathetic, because later on, we'll talk about the scene actually in the station when when Leatherface and Top Chop, which is his brother, come, and that's the hitchhiker's twin brother apparently, according to my research. But they come to the radio station, and we'll talk about that actual scene in a minute. But she's in danger, and she gets out of it, right? And then she follows them back to their base, and then Lefty shows up behind her, like after, and have a little bit of scare, like because she thinks at first that he's a hostile, and then he comes out, he's like, oh hey Stretch, it's just me, and I'm like, wait a minute. It implies that he followed both of them here, which implies that he was there the whole time and just didn't come in to save her. He was just using her as bait and didn't care if she died. Because she could have easily died. I mean, she got herself out of it, but she could have easily died. And it's like, oh man, he just does not give a shit. Like, he's just out for revenge. He doesn't care about anyone else.
Yeah, he's not the best dude.
No, he's certifiable. And I want to ask this question. Where exactly did he buy his holsters for the small chainsaws? Answer me that.
If this movie came out a little later, I would say maybe he was inspired by like Evil Dead movies or something, like just knowing like, oh, chainsaws can be a cool weapon. Maybe we need something for that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
I mean, is this a thing? Do people who use chainsaws actually have holsters for these little ones because in case they need to use them when they're out doing things? Like, is that an actual thing? Maybe it's not silly. Maybe I'm assuming it's a stupid movie thing, but it's actually no. Yeah. I mean, the fact that he's got two of them though, and he's got like two little chainsaws and he's like holsters as he's got the big one out. Oh, that's quite funny.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the radio station, because it's a really fun scene actually.
Oh yeah.
So we have Top Chop comes in first, obviously, and he kind of just acts weird, and she gets uncomfortable because she's been left alone because the other guy that works with her went away for coffee or whatever, and he
starts like dressed like a hippie, and seems to be making like a lot of like demands, and you get that eerie feeling that, oh, this guy isn't gonna leave. Like, she keeps going like, okay, like, we're closed, can you please leave now? And he just keeps like continue on the conversation, like he's not even acknowledging what she says.
Yeah, he sort of pretends he kind of is going along with it, and he just kind of laughs when she says that's the exit sign, that's time to go, and he's like, oh yeah, it says exit, 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 and he just laughs. Of course, Leatherface's introduction here is fantastic. He comes running out the darkness out of this this room where they keep all the vinyls for the radio shows, and that's great. And he ends up hitting him instead. He hits Chop Top, and we learn that he was wearing a wig, and he's actually got like he's got a dome. And we see, because he keeps picking at himself with this like coat hanger, with the edge of it. And then once his wig's off and you see sort of the edge of the flesh around this metal dome bit, he starts picking at it and eating it, and it is like so disgusting. And this is one of those moments where it lingers for a long time. Like Leatherface is off chasing her with a chainsaw, and he's just like, we're just watching him just pick bits of his head and eat it and lick his fingers. It is disgusting, but it works. It's good in that sense. It actually reminded me of disgusting. Earlier on in the movie, she goes to like a chili competition, and it's the dad, what's his name, Drayton Sawyer from the first movie. He worked at the garage in the first one. He wins the trophy. He's like, oh, the secret's in the meat. You got to have good prime meat. And I'm like, oh, he's serving human meat to people. Oh, the whole thing. But again, it's sort of darkly funny kind of thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so she gets out of it because she traps herself in a room, and I actually kind of like the little twist in this when she enters a room and she shuts the door. It's like a metal sliding door, and it's like this weird role reversal from the first movie when Leatherface like shut the metal door.
Oh right, yeah.
I thought it was a neat touch. Then Leatherface ends up just jumping in the wall behind her eventually, which is also good fun. But this scene gets weirdly erotic. Like,
oh yeah,
because even before like she kind of talks him down and sort of plays along as the because earlier on Lefty said to her, oh, they react on fear, so if you don't act scared maybe it won't go the same way, and she starts like kind of saying, oh, that's not good. She starts barking orders at him as if she's in charge. It's almost like a dog. If you show them that you're the boss, they won't do the thing. But even before that, there's this big like ice bucket with like, you know, various cans in it and stuff, and Leatherface is just sort of like putting his chainsaw into the ice, and it's like, it's maybe he's cut into some of the ice, maybe he's cut into some of the cans, but it's like spurting like liquid up into her face, and it's like very erotic because he's just doing this up and down into the ice, and she's like being like getting a facial of like soda and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's already weirdly erotic, but then she kind of like, obviously not actually leading him on, just to try and stop him from killing her. Tries to like,
yeah, well, like, once she kind of gets the inkling of what he wants, she kind of plays it to her advantage to survive. And yeah, it gets really disturbing, especially when it's cutting back to Leatherface, like licking his lips and, you know, just kind of, gliding the chainsaw gently up her leg.
Yeah, he starts going smooth. I was doing a little impression there of his lips. Just in case people thought I was just doing that randomly. Yeah, he starts putting the chainsaw slow. It's not turned on, obviously, but he's just sort of like slowly sliding it up her leg until it gets to the crotch, and then he just leaves it there and kind of like pushes in with it a little bit, and he sort of goes back to his and he's like, licking his lips. It's deeply disturbing, and she's of course terrified by this, but she's trying to pretend that she's not for him, so that he thinks she's in command, and he actually lets her live. He lets her go and just goes away and comes out and just says that he kills her. Meanwhile, of course, the other guy comes back, the other worker, LJ, at the station, and Chop Top bashes his head in with a hammer, which is another glorious death, to be honest. It's pretty brutal. He just kind of keeps hitting them. And I think the most brutal part is, though, is he doesn't actually quite kill him here, because he keeps moving, but he can't really, he doesn't have the strength to get up, because his head's just been bashed in with a hammer. But he's like spasming and he's doing all these things, and it just feels really sick and brutal.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to one of the kills in the first movie. I forget who it was, but there was someone that got knocked down and then kind of like started spasming. And
that was the first one. That was the one at the door with the metal shutter.
Oh, right. Okay. And yeah, it's something about that is like that's just like so upsetting. I don't know if it just seems like too real or too like animalistic or something, but
I think the simplest kills are always the most terrifying because they feel more like, because as much as you could go and kill someone with a chainsaw, very few serial killers actually use it because it's it's bulky, you need to start it up, it's dead loud, like there's a lot of reasons not to use a chainsaw if you're a serial killer. Where someone just running up and hitting you in the head with a hammer seems like anyone could do that at any second if they wanted to. So there's an element of real fear with that to an extent. But yeah, so she follows them, then Hopper shows up, Lefty, and she falls in a very convenient trapdoor.
Yeah, this I found it is odd. Well, her motivation altogether, I don't really understand. Like, you are home free. I know you want to get these people, but at the same time, like, you're so unprepared.
Yeah, I don't know why she gets out of the car, because I get why she follows follows him in the car, right? Because she gets out and she's like, damn it, Lefty's not here. He needs to know where they are. So I get the idea that she's following them so she can see where they go, and then she can go and report it to him when she sees him later.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
That's fine. I get that part. Yeah. Why she gets out of the car and then she thinks, because she thinks Lefty in his car is another bad person, and she starts running for her life. And yeah, what if he was? What if that was another member of the family? You'd be screwed again.
Yeah.
And then she falls in the hole.
Which I guess this was just like a trapdoor they just had like on the ready for some reason.
Here's the funny thing. So she falls down the trapdoor, down the hole, and she ends up down in there, like, we'll call it the cooking preparation / morgue.
Yeah.
Room. She ends up down there, but like we're about to say about a lot of these scenes, like going on a little bit too long, it's actually made worse by the fact that Dennis Hopper up top, opens his car, he gets these little chainsaws in his holsters, and he gets his big chainsaw, and he comes in and he sees like some stuff, he sees some blood flowing, there's like a wall that breaks free with all this blood and like organs and stuff in it, and he's like, oh, this is the house of the devil, I'm going to bring it down. And he revs up his chainsaw and he starts like sawing things, and you get the impression that he's working his way through to the main part of this place. And here's the thing, some of the other scenes with her, when we cut back to her, take so long, and we only occasionally cut back to him for a scene. There's a scene with him where he finds like a body, like a corpse, a really old corpse in a wheelchair, and I started laughing because I'm like, is that Franklin? And then he kneels down next, he's like, oh, Franklin, don't cry, I'm here now. I'm like, oh my god, I'm surprised you didn't kill him yourself if you didn't listen to him for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Look at even his corpse is in a wheelchair.
But other than that, it is literally like we spend these scenes with Stretch, with Leatherface and the family, go on for a long time. Like I say, when we get to this location, we're about 50, just over 50 minutes into the movie, and there's still another 50 to go. And so much of like her, like, and don't get me wrong, she's hiding behind this thing. Leatherface actually finds her, and she calms him down, and it's almost like he thinks she's his girlfriend now. And he's skinning the guy who worked at the station, LJ. And we see him like skin big bit of the leg, and he holds up the skin, then he holds up a bit of like flesh from the stomach, and then eventually he like cuts off the face, like this mask, and he's about to like hold it up to his face, and he's like, the whole thing's very disgusting. It's very, again, compared to the first movie, it's a lot more bloody. There's a lot more blood and stuff, and all this these kind of scenes. But then he finds her, and thinking that she's his girlfriend, takes this new Leatherface, this new fresh skin mask from him, and puts it on her, and it's all sort of hanging off of her face and then he puts on the cowboy hat on top of her, and she looks ridiculous and terrified, and then he gets her up and basically starts dancing with her, and like and it's really surreal. It goes on too long. Like we say, a lot of these scenes are good, but last far too long, and the pacing is kind of wonky. But the scene itself and what's happening is really ridiculous, and the idea that Leatherface thinks he's got a girlfriend is really hilarious.
Yeah. You know what? Some of it kind of feels like, it's almost as if maybe there was a lot of improvising on the set. Like it feels like maybe they just let the camera go and like, all right, like, put this on her and then start dancing with her, and then, but it wasn't like, oh, just do this and this and then we'll cut, and it's just like, yeah, just keep going, like, let's see what we get.
I can see that. I would still argue that in editing they should have said no. Here's where we cut, here's where we chop. But it does go on a bit too long, and then again there's because a lot of this blurs together for me, because she ends up he leaves, and then she gets out because LJ's not dead yet. He's alive just long enough with half of his skin off just to cut her free, and then she's like, there's a lot of her sneaking around in the main area, because the room she's in is kind of like in the middle of this place, and there's like a sort of big surrounding area, which is where most of the other family are, and they're preparing things and whatever. And there's a lot of her like almost like running into one of them, running into Chop Top, and then like going into a pipe instead. There's a lot of that. And then eventually Leatherface comes running after. He's pissed that she was leaving, and then the rest of the family find her. In fact, she almost gets away here. She almost gets away, and then Dennis Hopper's character, the idiot, is chainsawing like other bits of like beams and stuff holding up the roof, and actually caves in front of her. He stops her from getting away. He doesn't necessarily mean to do it, but he does.
Yeah. His plan also is kind of weird. Like, I get he thinks this is like an evil, sinful place, and he wants to like bury it in the ground. But at the same time, maybe you should just focus on finding these people first, doing what
Yeah.
you want to do with them, and then getting rid of the place.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, it feels like he's doing it the wrong way around. Find them first, kill them, and then start taking the place down. The way he's doing it is really weird, especially since you would think you would start in the middle and work your way out so that you can get out.
Yeah.
It feel- it's like he's on a suicide chainsaw campaign. It's really weird.
And I also wasn't really sure the exact layout of this place. Like, is it just one big underground area, or is there like different underground floors?
I don't know if there's different floors. It seems like there's a lot of tunnels though, because Dennis Hopper takes ages to get to the main area. Like
Yeah,
he takes
'cause
an eternity to get there.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure if he was on like some upper level or lower level that he was taking the beams out and working his way through, or something. I don't know. It's kind of hard 'cause the place does feel gigantic.
Yeah, I think it was like upper tunnels or something like that. And that did make me laugh though. Is they all blame Leatherface because they notice one of the beams is cut down, and he's like, "Oh, look what your brother did again!" And this is all that. So when they catch the girl at the end of this tunnel, and the rest of the family see her, and they basically realize, "Oh, Leatherface has got a girlfriend," and Chop Top starts singing about it, and they're teasing him, and she's begging for help, and Leatherface does nothing. And then we kind of get like a sequel to the dinner scene from the first movie, where they tie her up and they bring out Grandpa, and they try and have Grandpa bash her head in with a hammer, and it doesn't work because he's weak and frail.
I thought this was really odd. Like, it's not a horrible scene, but in a movie where everything seems to be so different from the first one, it's weird to go back and do something that's like almost exactly the same.
I agree. It's really weird because the entire movie up until this point, from the very opening scene, it's screaming, "No, we're not doing the same thing. This is different. I want to do something different." And then it gets to this scene, it's like, "Oh, let's do that scene from the last one again, almost identical."
Yeah.
Except for the fact, obviously Dennis Hopper jumps out at the end with his chainsaws.
Yeah.
But
like, I think it might have been cool if maybe they set up that they were gonna do that, like, oh, we're gonna do this again, but then something interrupts it. Like, if Dennis Hopper came in a lot earlier and just like chainsawed right through the grandpa, or like that could be kind of cool.
But instead, it doesn't. It shifts. It plays through almost the whole way, like it did the last time, and then Hopper jumps out. And then what I thought was weird is it almost treated Stretch and Chop Top stuff as that's the main finale of the movie, and then Hopper and Leatherface were kind of like the side finale because they finished first, and it also ended in a really weird way, I thought, because I actually had to go back and check to see if I'd missed something, because I felt like the Leatherface and like Lefty stuff, because we see the dad Drayton goes under the table, he's got a grenade, he's like, maybe it's just time to call it a day. We keep attracting too much attention kind of thing, and he's ready to just blow himself up. And we see Leatherface and obviously Lefty are having a duel with chainsaws, which is not bad. It's a not bad duel. I'm a little bit spoiled because I did see Motel Hell, which I think had a better chainsaw duel at the end.
I don't think I saw that.
Well, I'm sure we'll do it one day.
I'm excited. Because the idea of dueling chainsaws is awesome, and I think this was a little bit of a missed opportunity. Like, it wasn't bad, but like you said, this should have been this should have been the big, crazy like finale. It seems like it was played off a little sooner than it should have.
Yeah, because we keep cutting away from it. We see, like, at one point there's a chainsaw sticking out of Leatherface's stomach, which is when Hopper switches to the small ones, and like Leatherface accidentally like goes through the table, which cuts the dad in the back, and he drops the grenade. I assumed that meant the grenade was about to go off, but the pin was still in it.
Oh yeah.
And then the last we see at any of this scene is just we obviously the grandpa throws his hammer, and it ends up hitting Leatherface. And the final shot of this whole thing is this is all kind of still going on, and it cuts to Dennis Hopper just holding up a little chainsaw, screaming and like sort of like an insane sort of war cry, and that's the last we see of it. It feels that scene feels kind of unfinished.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like we see how it ends. It's weird.
Yeah, it's strange.
Because the other stuff works, because we see obviously Lefty runs off, and we see Chop Top race after, they go up, we see it's morning now, and I believe it, because it felt like that part of the movie went on so long that I buy that it's morning. and he chases her up this old thing that goes to this little monument up, and there's some good chasing stuff and kicking. I really like when she's like climbing up the ladder. He keeps like slashing at the back of her thighs and her ankles, and it's really like they're just little cuts, but they feel kind of squirmy because it's a really awkward place.
Yeah, and there is something I want to go back to actually real quick.
There you go.
Something that Drayton says, I think before like Lefty shows up, he mentions something about their grandmother up in Chainsaw Heaven, which I just think it's kind of weird because like they don't really like. Obviously, we know Leatherface loves the chainsaw; that's his thing. He's super into it. But before that, it never really seemed like this is a family thing. Like this is something everyone in the family loves and can't stop talking about, and we all have our chainsaws and love them. Like, so it's just kind of weird to me that Chainsaw Heaven, that's a thing we like and believe in.
Yeah, I actually glossed over that myself. That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
And it comes into play a little bit later once with Stretch at the end.
Yeah, because obviously that's what they're climbing up to. They find this corpse of the grandmother, and then Stretch starts like cutting himself in the throat. Because usually it was kind of like a callback to the hitchhiker in the first one, cutting his hand kind of thing. But there's a chainsaw. Maybe that's what he meant with Chainsaw Heaven. Maybe that's because that's how she died.
Yeah.
Because there's a chainsaw in her stomach, and that's what Lefty pulls out, and she ends up chainsawing Chop Top, and he goes flying outside, and we see him not only roll down this little sort of fake mountain they're on, but he also goes into this pipe. He ends up I was like, oh, jackpot, you got him in. And then the final shot of the movie is her at the top of this like mountain display thing, and she's holding the chainsaw up, and it's very reminiscent at the end of the first one with Leatherface, which was fine when she was just holding it up and screaming, but then she started actually doing the turns and the swipes, and I thought, that's weird, why is she doing that?
You know, it's kind of funny because earlier in the movie, you know, Leatherface is all into her, and at first you kind of think like, well, these two have nothing in common. But then at the end of the movie, like, they might actually make a good couple. Like,
is the movie implying that after going through this, that she's also kind of crazy now, and that's why she's doing the same kind of motions as Leatherface? It's implying that she might go on to become the new Leatherface.
I wouldn't be surprised. I should forget what happens in the sequels, but I don't think that she appears again. But
don't think so. No.
Yeah.
So
wow, I mean, my walls are shaky.
Yeah, that was a serious helicopter going past it. But I do like the way it ends. I like the final shot. Other than that, I do think it's weird that she goes full dance with the chainsaw. Like, it was fine when she was just holding it up, but then when she starts doing all the little arm movements, it was like, oh, this is a bit weird. Why is she doing that? And I guess maybe that's what it's saying, that she's went through this, that she's kind of crazy now as well. But like I say, when that happened, and I was like, oh, it cut to credits, I went, wait a minute, how did the Dennis Hopper stuff end? I felt like I'd missed how that ended, and I had to go back and check.
Yeah, as you're talking about it, I watched this movie 2 days ago now at this point, and yeah, it seems like a blur. Like, I can't even. I'm like, oh yeah, how did that happen? Like, I remember, him, like, coming in, jumping down, and then having the duel. But then after that, it's kind of like, oh wait, yeah.
It feels like they forgot to film the end of the scene, or maybe it was a bad couple of takes, and they couldn't get Hopper back to finish it, and it just kind of. It's weird. It ends in a really weird place. I guess you're just sort of meant to buy that he's like in his element. He's going crazy with his chainsaws, and he's about to bring them all down. And I guess, I mean, I get why they didn't want to just kill like Leatherface and the dad and stuff, because they're probably thinking, oh, there might be a third one, so we don't want you to kill everyone off on camera.
Sure,
but,
yeah.
It was just a really weird way. Like, I legitimately felt like when the credits rolled, like, wait a minute, how did the other fight end? And I had to go back and check. I couldn't remember. It finished like 5 minutes ago, and it's because it doesn't really feel like it ends. It just kind of cuts to this and then never goes back. It's weird. But that's Texas Chainsaw 2. Anything else you want to talk about, Timmy?
Well, I guess this is kind of gonna go into like my, final review or score or whatever.
Actually,
but
that's something I want to point out. Just this is a small thing, but see in the radio station scene when Chop Top's been all threatening and he's just talking to her as if he's a fan. I like how that scene's lit. It's lit green and purple, or green and pink. It's very neon, and I'm like, again, just the idea that we're saying, no, this is different from the first film. You would never have seen like fancy green and pink lighting in the first movie.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
It's very this movie. It's also very 80s, which I appreciate. So I thought of that. I wanted to point out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is kind of weird because I had a lot of fun with it, and I liked it, but I feel like it's just so short of being like a really good movie. Like it just needs a lot of like editing and
Yeah, it has good ideas. It has a lot of fun sequences, but pacing's a bit off, structure's a bit off, and then on top of that, you have this weird kind of non-ending for like part of it.
yeah.
So yeah, it's got a lot of these issues that pile up and kind of make it feel. It feels like a sort of disjointed series of good scenes.
Yeah, and it just seems a little unusual because I feel like when we're complaining about something, it's usually because, like, oh, we'll have a movie where we like everything that we're presented with, we don't like, and we don't like the direction and what the characters are doing or something. And in this, it's like, oh, we like everything. It just needs to be kind of moved around
Tightened.
and cut. Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like it's less we complain that, oh, there's too much. Like usually it's like the opposite. I feel like
I think it's still fun. Like I had fun with it. I got
oh
a lot,
yeah,
I got a little bit restless at certain points when the scenes went on a little bit too long in the second half, but I did have fun. Like I had fun with most of it. I think it's a pretty decent sequel. It's not a great movie, but there's a lot of things to like about it. So, with that said, I guess we should do some ratings, Timbo. Out of 10.
I think I'm still gonna go relatively high, which I'm gonna do a 7. But yeah, again, this easily could have been a 7.5, maybe even an 8 movie if not to beat a dead horse, but yeah, if it was just tightened up a little bit and so a little more even in some parts.
I'm gonna go a smidge lower. I'm gonna go 6.5.
Okay.
I feel like saying a 7 is saying, no, this is a good film, and I feel like I can't ultimately say that about this because it just misses that mark because of these various issues we've brought up.
Yeah.
But it still gets to 6.5 because a lot of the scenes on their own are actually a lot of fun. So.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't have a bad time with it. I do think it needs to be shortened a bit. The structure needs to be thought out a little bit more. But no, there's some genuinely, as much as we say it's more of a black comedy, there is some genuinely creepy scenes. That scene in the radio station where he's talking to her and Top Chop and or Chop Top. I've been saying it a different way around every time I've said it. But when Chop Top's talking to her, he's like, "Oh, I'm a fan. Can you give me a tour?" And she's like giving her a tour. She's just picking things up the desk. Like, here's the pen and here's the Rolodex and here's a Sharky Talk man, and she does the shark talk thing. Yeah. So.
And then the scene where Leatherface like bursts through the wall, like I didn't see that coming. Like that's it's almost like if I was in a theater, like I would have jumped.
Or even what I said before then, when he first enters from the shadows inside the record room, and
sure, yeah.
and he just comes running out with a chainsaw. And what I like about that is it's actually proper creepy and scary when he comes out, and then it ends with a laugh because he hits the wrong person and he hits his brother. So. It's got a whirlwind of things. It just needs a bit tightened. It just needs maybe someone else to come in and say, all right, let's tighten this. Let's chop a few things here or there, and just make it a bit more. Just make it flow a bit better.
Agreed.
But no, so there you go. 6.5 and a 7 then from us for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which ain't bad for a sequel, honestly. No. We were definitely a little lower for some of these. And I'm actually excited about doing the next one because the next one. Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 is the only one in the series that I've not seen before. So
yeah, I really can't recall it. If I did see it, I remember nothing about it. Like this, it'd been a long time since I'd seen it, but I remembered the radio station and like some of the ending stuff. Like there's still
I think you
a little bit there.
I think you typically remember Dennis Hopper, you remember chainsaw duels, and you remember maybe the car at the start kind of thing. If you're just remembering key things, but nah. So good or bad, I am curious to check out the third one because it's weird that I've never seen it. Yeah. So, looking forward to that. I am not looking forward to the fourth one because I am positive that will be a very negative review. So you can look forward to the Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger Texas Chainsaw movie.
That one I am looking forward to.
Oh God, Tim, no. No, 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 no. So that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. Let us know what you think of the movie, of course. Obviously, there's something I forgot to do in the last streams that went up, is I forgot to announce the new vote, because obviously once a month we do a review for a movie that was voted for by our patrons, because we're on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. If you want to support the channel and support this show specifically, there's some cool bonuses for streams, including the vote stuff, and obviously some goals in there for extra stuff eventually if we hit those goals related to streams, so that's cool. But every month we have the vote. The vote from last month, that will be a little bit later on this month. Typically that will be a little bit earlier than the month when we do that, but Tim's going home for a week, he's visiting his family, so we had to push it a little bit later into the month of June than we normally would. But the vote for July is up. It'll be up all the month of June. It's already up for Patreon on, as I say, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. If you've not voted yet, you can head over there. Just click on the little tab at the side that says Patrons Vote. So it'll be one of the top 2 results, along with the Influx vote. And the theme for this month, we picked, because obviously last month, or for this month's movie, we had the director's theme with Lucio Fulci. The theme for July's movie is summer, because, well, it's summer. And the 4 movies in the option are I Know What You Did Last Summer, the original Piranha, Madman, and Tourist Trap. So that is the 4 movies up for option if you want to vote in that. And for the movie we're going to do in July, by all means go over. And obviously as well, if you want to comment and give us ideas for themes for possible future votes, I'm not going to promise we'll use any of them, but it wouldn't hurt to suggest some.
Yeah.
Now, there's maybe a really obvious summer movie we've not put in there, or maybe a couple of obvious summer movies. It's because we maybe have plans to do things anyway. So, but this is the vote for the July patron bonus, or Patreon's pick episode. So, by all means, go over to Patreon and check that out. But here we are. So that brings us to the end of the show. So thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. That helps us out a lot if you do that. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. But that is us, so thank you once again for watching. Keep watching scary movies. We'll see you next time.